Hey everyone, Yasin here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins where I take you through my art journey. Okay, so starting off, a bunch of figure drawings, and here were the ones I did from reference. Uh, so I use an app called Gesture Drawing. It's it's called Gesture Drawing, and it helps you with gesture drawing. And basically, it allows you to put your own images into a folder and then use the images in that folder as a gesture drawing uh, tool. So yeah, it's pretty handy. If you have a lot of images anyway of like figure drawing stuff, then it's useful. Otherwise, I think the websites that have free like Pixel Lovely or Line of Action or things like that are just fine. But anyway, I do those and then I copy the layer, bring it over, lower the opacity, and then I draw over it. In this case, I'm using the dry ink brush, and yeah, so I tried to remember what the pose was, and I draw it, but I'm also stylizing them and making up the faces because they're not there anymore, and it allows me to make kind of my own faces and do some of the stuff from imagination, which makes it much more productive, I think, and it makes the studying stick a lot more anyway for me. So yeah, just doing that. And here I was really playing around with a very fast coloring technique. Something I used to do more where I take a pencil sketch and then I kind of mask out the figure itself. Now I'll show you the process later, but it's just I'm lazy, and so I like to get things done very fast. I want the idea done fast, and then I feel like I'm not as interested in like rendering all the details, but I just want to capture the idea as quickly as possible before I get bored. That's not to say rendering is bad, and I do render, especially for work. I have to render things and kind of do them carefully, but when I'm doing my own stuff, I just feel way too lazy to do all that. So I'll do a quick sketch and then I'll try to just paint directly on it. And the idea is that if I'm enjoying myself more, and I also like things looking rough, I always appreciated when like looking at comics and looking at the pencils, not the inked version, but the rougher version. I always like that more. So yeah, I mean, doing that it gives me a look that I personally prefer, and then it's faster. So that's what I was doing, just experimenting with different things and seeing how fast I could get things down. I suppose it's still not super fast, but it's fairly fast. So here I was struggling with Kay's outfit. So I got it to this point, and then it just felt like there's a lot missing. So I wasn't sure what to do. So I tried darkening the back of the wings. I think Flavia suggested this, just make these wing things in the back, make them dark. Then I tried changing the hair, like, oh, maybe if I change the back of the head, make it a bit more rounded. But it didn't really work, and I made the shoulder pads a bit more minimal, so they're not so big. But I can't say that worked well. I tried to just completely get rid of the shoulder pads, and I don't hate this with no shoulder pads at all. I think it's kind of cool. And I gave her a different hairstyle, but I think this might be not strong enough. I'm not sure. Then I realized, well, maybe there's yellow in her eyes, and in some of the other K images I've made when she's in her different forms, her outfit has some yellow on it. So I thought maybe I could bring in some yellow from her eyes into her outfit. And I also tried a different hairstyle. A lot of this is just so I could say like, well, I like the hair on 3 and the body on 6 or what, something like that, you know. So I'm not saying like, well, I think this hairstyle is better than this one or something. I'm trying different things so I have different references. So in this one, I like the glove the most. but I felt like these were a bit distracting. It draws the eye a lot to this area when I look at it, whereas this one I'm drawn much more upward with the yellow here. So the hair as well maybe contributes to that, but there's a strong emphasis up here, and that's kind of good. Um, but maybe it felt a bit too much. I'm not sure actually, but I did feel at the time this was a bit much. So I tried this one where I just kind of put a bit of yellow up top. Because I do want you to look up here. I don't want you to be fixated on her boob cleavage or, for your eye to go down. Because what I noticed here is that I'm looking here, but I'm also looking here. Whereas on this glove, maybe because it repeats the shape, my eye doesn't get stuck on it as much. Maybe also because the shape is kind of repeated here, so your eye goes like there and then goes up the wing, then goes here, and then it lands on the head again and the face. So that's good. And when it comes to design, like all these things they're very little things. They seem really small, but I found they're super important. So here too, just by putting an extra piece of yellow here, I think it looks cooler for this area. So if that was just the area and you compare these, I prefer this one. But overall, when I look at both, this one makes my eye go downwards. And so that's distracting. And then my eye also gets stuck on this large yellow area because it just acts, because it's an accent, it acts as a focal point. So I look here, which, I mean, it's okay because you do use your hands a lot. So maybe focusing on the hands is not such a big deal. Maybe it's not so bad, but it's too distracting, it feels like. So here I wanted to do some expressions, different expressions that she could have. And I thought maybe it would be helpful to make her a bit more realistic just for the sake of doing some expressions. I guess it's still very stylized, but it's less stylized than this, for instance, on the left side. So I realized I was having a lot of trouble with her because I couldn't get in her head. At this stage, she's like in her 20s, between 22 and 27, and she was kind of aloof, so it was definitely hard to get a sense of who she was as a person. So I wanted to draw the expressions just to get that feeling of who she is. I thought maybe she'd have a very childlike laugh when she laughs. She's very childlike. I don't know. I don't mind the drawings themselves, but what's happened over the past while is my drawings get better, but at least I think I've improved in drawing, but it's no longer about making a nice looking image. In the beginning, that's all it was. I just wanted to make nice looking images. And as I'm getting better and able to make more images that I like, it's now much more important that I'm getting the point across, or the achieving a certain purpose. So in the case of these figure drawings, it's not just, well, okay, does this look cool? I want to know, okay, am I doing a good job with these lines to make this come forward? Am I capturing things well? Am I capturing the anatomy but keeping it simple, but not leaving anything important? Like for this one, perhaps I could have simplified this, where from here to here it just becomes a straight line, but then you'd lose this little bump that indicates the turn and the pelvis. So is it worth it? And stuff like that, because you have a point. There is a reason for doing these beyond just, making a pretty picture, or something that looks cool that you can share with people. And I think thinking more like this has caused me to improve a lot more than when I was actually trying to make a good looking image. Oddly enough, when you work towards a purpose, you just end up getting the ingredients to making good images. they come as part of the process. Whereas if you're aiming to make a good image, that's such a large goal that is not quite clear. And it could go, you could, like, what does it mean to make a good image or a cool image? It could be many different things. But if your goal is a lot more specific, so I want to make this simple, or I want to convey the movement, I'm using this character in a comic and I want them to be, I want to be able to draw them over and over again reliably, and I want them to stand out. Stuff like that really helps to focus your art and also your improvement. Here, I guess I was tired. So I was just doing some random painting. I'm not happy with these. The form is not there. Just feels ugly. I put in a bunch of color variations, but they're sort of half-assed in where I'm putting them, just like boop, 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 putting them everywhere just to have some color variation, but not necessarily because I think they're really good. If I squint really hard to the point that I don't see the brushstrokes, then I guess it feels kind of formy and kind of okay, but overall, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of either of these. So back to K. So here I was thinking about, different elements here on this section and kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work. And even though this looks cut here, which it is, I kind of liked it. So it's strange. Some of the things that are kind of wrong in a way, like this flows nicely from here into here. This just ends, but it ends nicely, but this ends very abruptly. But sometimes that can work in a very strange way, or at least it's strange for me. I did a bigger version because I wanted to see, well, what would it look like close up, but I think I messed up on, I did mess up on this angle, super important angle. I messed up on the jaw angle. You can see, at least in some of these, this one I guess is better. She has a very severe change here, and this is much straighter, and then it goes in quite a bit, and here this is not straight enough, it doesn't go in enough, and the change of the jaw should happen here, and it should be a lot more severe. So at least I'm getting better at noticing all the little things that are off. Here I decided maybe she could have a weapon where because I thought she has swords, and maybe she puts the swords back in these wings, like there's little holsters in these wings, and she reaches behind her, grabs the swords, and then pulls them out and uses two swords. But I thought it might also work to have like a flexible thing that's part of this wing that she pulls out, and it's sort of she can whip you with it, but then maybe it's got some kind of thing where it can also become straight like a sword, like those memory, the materials that, they're activated by temperature or electricity, but then they change, they morph from one thing into another. And overall, I just like, I like how she looks. I think she looks pretty cool here. So more than the whip idea, I think it's just, I guess it's what I said before. It's a nice drawing, but maybe that's not good. And then here, I was just wanting to do different colors of skin and play around with sort of lighting, but also environment. So I imagine in this one, he would be in a colder environment and the light is much stronger. And maybe there's a lot of snow that bounces light around, but I also change his hair color and stuff. And then here it's like a warmer environment. And I just wanted to practice with different ways of shading and like the color choices, where the shadows go. Here I thought it's something, maybe a swamp, and maybe it's like either overcast or it's at nighttime or something, and there's not much light, maybe some, a bit of light from the moon or something, but very weak. And yeah, when I squint, they all look a bit better than when I open my eyes, but I think it kind of worked. what I was aiming for. Again, I was trying to do it. I used a similar method as the other ones because I like doing very quick things. And here I was not really happy with this part because it looks like a W, which I guess could work for a waitress. But I wasn't super happy with that. I tried this, felt like it's too much of a focal point, and then I did this. And because it's an arrow and it's pointing up, I felt it worked better to lead the eye upward. And so I put it here, and that worked. I tried putting some yellow on the tips of the wings and kind of add something, so I thought that was okay. And then here I was struggling with what happens at the back, because in this thing I have it where this yellow thing comes around, then it goes up and up, but from the back this feels like it makes the back look like the front, like she has boobs and then that's the front, and that's not appealing. So I tried separating it and it still kind of had that feeling, which I don't like. Even this one kind of didn't feel good, so I was struggling a lot with that. And I wanted to draw her in action to see what did the wings look like kind of from the side. And she is quite difficult to draw with this outfit. At least for me, it's really hard to wrap my head around some of the turns. Like, okay, this goes around, then where does this go? And, what do some of the things look like? So it was quite difficult. And so I went back to figure drawing. Probably not having a great day, as evidenced by the drawing. I suppose here shows, probably I'm not feeling too great. And then here quite cements that idea that I'm not doing so well. And I tried these ways of ending the back, and I thought these work a lot better, especially this one. With the back revealed, it no longer looks like it's the front. So that's good. And definitely feels like the back. Then here, I like this guy Wicked Alucard's drawing style a lot, and he does this hatching thing. He has a really cool inking style, and I thought maybe I could do a study and try and figure it out, but not only wasn't I able to pull it off, of course you shouldn't expect to be able to pull it off right away, but I found I really didn't enjoy the process, so I didn't want to continue. Like, I'd rather how can I say this? I've gotten to the point that I realized that you can pretty much get good at anything you want to do, so long as you put in the time and the effort and you have the care for it. And so it's really important what you decide to pursue, because if you really hate drawing buildings but you really try, you can get better at drawing buildings, but you'll never be really, really good at it if you don't have the passion or the I guess the motivation to do it. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at finding, how do I feel when I do a piece? Do I enjoy this? Do I not? Do I enjoy the process? Am I going to be able to do this consistently over a long period of time, or am I not? And drawing this way it just felt really bad the whole way through. So yeah, unfortunately, because I really like how it looks, but I guess that's why there are lots of different people. So some people can do their things that look really cool, but you might not enjoy doing it yourself, but they can do it, and then you can appreciate it. Here, I'm still not feeling great, I suppose. So here, I was continuing with this coloring thing, and Flavia was watching this show called Downton Abbey, and sometimes I would come upstairs and see it, and then I don't know the characters, and these aren't characters from there because I don't have a visual memory. So what I do is I was just drawing the feeling they gave me, not really the characters themselves. So I don't think any of these are characters, but they feel like a generalized version of, maybe it's how I feel they are in that show. I find them quite funny, especially this one. I think she's really funny. Um, I like the sketch too. This one, I'm not happy with some of the fleshed out versions, especially with some of the hard edges here, like how crisp this outline is. I don't think that works very well. It fights a bit too much. It's neither here nor there. Like, it's not clean enough to be a simple style, but it's not rough enough to be a rough style, if that makes sense. Like, if I had used a pen tool and made this perfect, like a vector outline, maybe that could work. But as it is, it's neither here nor there. And I continued though with this because I did enjoy this process. So because I enjoy the process, I can do it more. And here I was just quickly showing Flavia how to do this coloring technique. And here is a bird and a person. I mean, it's not really a bird, doesn't really look like a bird, and the beak is not in perspective properly, but as an idea, I kind of like it. And some of them I prefer, like this one I prefer the sketch quite a bit more than this. This one too, I prefer the sketch. This one, I prefer the sketch. This one, I prefer the sketch. But this one, I prefer him, I guess. I think the color does something. It helps anyway. So yeah, I really wanted to get skin down because skin is tough. And just these subtle transitions, I realized that I do quite care about skin and making it look good. So here is a tutorial I made showing how these were done. It's all the same method. So I start with a sketch and then I use, this is all in Procreate, but it would work in Photoshop pretty much the same way. Or probably Clip Studio. Maybe you could do stuff similar to this. I'm not sure. I imagine you could do something similar, maybe not identical, or Paint Tool Sci or some other program. But anyway, I start with the sketch, and then I use color balance to change the color. I suppose I could just use this pencil color to begin with, but maybe it's just from doing it a lot. I'm more comfortable with the black on this textured paper. So I use color balance and I go into the shadows because in color balance there's shadows, midtones, and highlights. So I click on the shadows and then I can adjust all the dark tones, which just because this is on its own layer, the sketch is on its own layer, it will only affect the drawing. So then the line art turns that color. And then I fill it with, I select around it with a lasso tool and I fill it with a solid color, which is kind of like a dark version of like what I imagine the skin color would be in the shadow. So not in the light, but in the shadow. And then I clip, you can see this sketch still shows here. So I select it around, but then I clip the sketch down to this. So now you don't get this extra stuff all around. It just sticks to it only shows the area that I had selected now. So I do that, and all the layers on top of this are going to be clipped down now to this thing. So they're probably underneath the drawing layer for now, but they are being clipped down to this brownish mask, I suppose. So here I just take a light color and I start to block in where the larger areas of light would be. So I'm treating the head kind of like an egg where the light's at the top, or kind of from the front actually, here hitting it here, and just putting every place it would hit. And then I use a fill light, which is basically the light, in this case if he was standing outside, it would be the light from the sky that is bouncing around and hitting the top surfaces of everything. So I try and think, what is it facing up? What is facing the top? Well, the top of his head faces up. Probably this part of the cheek faces up a bit. The top of the shoulders. I wasn't really precise with this, so that's not very good. And I probably should have been more precise, but I just hit that on the top facing surfaces. Then I use this gouache brush. I guess you could use any brush. I just use this because it's rough, so it looks kind of painterly. And I mask the layers for this general light and this fill light. I merge those and I put a mask on them. And then with the mask, I use this gouache brush to paint in black. And what that does is it acts like an eraser. So black on a mask erases whatever is on that layer, and white on a mask reveals it again. So if I messed up and let's say I erased a part I don't want, I just change the color to white and then it'll paint it back in. So you can kind of rest easy and you don't have to worry about screwing up too much. And so what I do is I get rid of all the places the light wouldn't hit. So here it hits all the top surfaces, but it's not going to hit under the eye. So under the eye, I got rid of this using this brush, kind of like an eraser. Under the chin, around the ear and places, just got rid of things. And then I use this orangey color. Basically it implies the ground is like sand or dirt or something that would reflect this orangey color. And I use that to have a warm contrast to the blue, the cool light from above. I want a warm light from below. And so I fill that in. And that adds quite a bit of color variety at this point. I'm not really happy with the drawing itself, but whatever. So it's just showing you the technique itself. Okay, so here I put a mask on that underlight layer and I knocked it away from wherever it's not supposed to be. So here, see, it kind of went up in places it shouldn't go. And I just masked that out. Then I set a layer to overlay and I added some kind of reds in the ear, the cheek, the nose, anywhere where blood would pool up in the lips, for instance. And then what I did is, because this was all in the shadow, I got this generalized skin tone. Now I think this can be done a few different ways, but I was going for a very fast result because just, as I said, pretty lazy and I like doing things fast. So what I did is I took the skin tone, and here, and this was quite intentional, but everything is very contrasty. It's almost too contrasty. So I know with skin you get very subtle transitions. There's nothing that is, I mean, unless you have really harsh lighting, you're not going to get a lot of super contrasty things in skin. You would in metal or different materials, but not in skin. So I use this and I just go over the whole thing on a new layer, but it's a normal layer. Just go over the whole thing, and that knocks everything back and it brings it all towards a skin color, which is what I want. So even with things like the eyebrows, eyebrows tend not to be so dark. They're not like super duper dark as you might think they are. They are if you put on makeup and you like draw the eyebrow on, or you get an eyebrow tattoo or something. But in real life, they tend not to be ultra dark, especially on lighter skin. So going over it all just knocks it back. Now what I have is, because I've knocked it back, I've also gotten rid of the contrast. But what I can do is now I have, because I got rid of some of the darks, I now have those darks that I can put back, but in selective areas. So I'm using this brown color, and I make a new layer, set it to multiply, and I go into the areas where there is occlusion, so where the light cannot get to. So under the armpits, for instance, or where there are things overlapping, like where there are wrinkles or folds, or where parts touch and then light can't really get in those spots, that's where I put occlusion. So I mean, putting occlusion is kind of backwards, because really what it is, it's where the light can't get to. So if you were treating this properly as light works, you would never draw in occlusion. You would just never add light to those areas. But because we are drawing in this way, I just put the darks where light really won't get to. So here in the eye, and also what it does is the eye might not be that dark necessarily, but it does create more of a focus on it. And then here what I do is I make a new layer and I set it to normal. And now I'm just normally painting. So I have a bunch of colors, a bunch of values on this character now. And I can just start regularly color picking from what I have, adjusting things. So for instance, maybe I wanted this shadow to be more red and a bit darker and a bit more defined. So I just color pick maybe this color and then make it more red and add that in. And I added a bit of a light from a secondary source on the side here. But it doesn't really show up because the background color is very close, or the value is very close. So what I did is I added a background here. I think I just set it to multiply and put it near his head so that light would now pop out, because if you have a value and it's right beside another value, it's not going to pop out. But if you have a light, or if you have a value and it's beside a value that's either lighter or darker, then it will pop out. So, and then I use, I made a very dark color and I set a new layer to add. So yeah, add, that's what it's called. In Photoshop, it's called linear dodge, I believe, and it's got in brackets add, but it's the same thing. So with these add things, the layer mode, add, linear dodge, color dodge works this way as well, screen works this way. If you use a very dark color, you can actually have control. But if you use a bright color or even a middle color, it will blow out and you'll get these super intense highlights everywhere. So if you're not going for that, if you don't want it to look like everything's magical or everything's metallic or something, then just make sure the color is very dark, almost black, not quite black, because if it's pure black, it won't show up at all. But if it's just a dark with a tiny bit of color perhaps, then it will show up. And then I wanted more of a general light here. This is quite optional, but I just put in this warmer light. And then my last step is to go into color balance, and I just adjust all the sliders, the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows until it's something more to what my personal taste is. And for a lot of people, they might prefer this version because I tend to like things going towards purples and blues and reds, as opposed to like yellows and greens and oranges. So but that's very much just personal taste. So here I drew K, and I wanted it to look soft, and then I thought, well, I want to take this further because this felt like, yeah, it's okay, but it kind of looks unfinished. So I just put this bokeh lights in Procreate. You've got a brush that does this in the luminance, I think it's called luminance folder of brushes. There's that, and then just lowered the value of things, added a bit of a reflected light, so now it looks a lot more three-dimensional, especially with the hair, for instance. Just adding those rim lights really pops things out. So yeah, I'm okay with this one, but I think this one is just looks unfinished. So even this one's a bit unfinished, I think, but it's better. And it is nice to see Kay kind of more done. It was important for me to get a sense of how she looks with her things, because when I do a cartoony style, I still want to understand what she would look like if she was more real. But with that said, I'm not... it's okay. I feel like, it's okay, but it's not perfect. Okay, so here's some more figure drawing. 90 seconds. And just like before, I take those drawings and then I flesh them out and make them more interesting. Here, you'll see that there's a big empty space. So I just made her hair fill that. Not sure there's much to say. I think I am getting a bit better with this dry brush though. So I'm learning that you have to omit a lot of details. So you see with the hands, if I put in all the fingers, it's going to look really dark. It's going to change the value, and it's not going to feel like fingers anymore. I mean, it will look like you'll be able to tell, yes, those are fingers, but it will darken this way too much. So by actually omitting details, like getting rid of stuff here, because if you were looking at someone from far, you often don't, and you squint, you don't see like all the individual lines of the hand. A lot of things blur together. A lot of things are very close in value. So by getting rid of them, it feels actually more correct. So I do that with like the toes as well. Like these probably are very subtle. So when you've got a dark here, like I'm using a pretty much pure black uh, on the brush, you have to really ask yourself, is this way darker than a midtone? Because if it's like dark and it's very dark, or it needs to be defined, then yes, you would put that there. But if it's kind of light, then by putting it there, you're actually making it quite distracting. So for this, for instance, I didn't even put the collarbone, because if I put that, it would imply that she has a very deep collarbone. But if she doesn't, then it doesn't help to add that. So that's what I'm getting a bit better at here, trying to convey this kind of round three-dimensional quality with this brush was kind of hard. I don't think her hair wasn't like that, but just made up stuff. And then trying to, again, make things come forward and go back in space. That's quite tricky with this brush. And I don't feel like I know how to use it better. I'm just doing it better because I've done it. It's weird. Like this is going back in space. It feels like it's going back in space because I gently, you can see I lifted off here. So it looks like it's lighter. And that's something that if you just keep drawing over and over again, eventually you'll do one thing by accident. It's like, oh, it kind of looks good. Or maybe you just start to feel it out. So I think that's why mileage is so important. It's not important if you're not thinking, and it's not important if you, because mileage can actually be harmful if you're practicing bad habits over and over again. It can hurt you. But if you're practicing good habits, then by doing things a lot, you just discover things. Like for instance, here, I tried to make the armpit dark, but maybe that's too much and it acts kind of weird and doesn't quite look so good. So maybe I wouldn't do that in the future. And by doing it over and over again, you figure out all the things you could do or should do or shouldn't do. So I was going to make this tutorial, or actually I was going to make this course on how to draw if you only know how to draw a stick figure. Because people sometimes say, oh, I can't draw anything. I can't even draw a stick figure. So I thought, okay, what if I teach them how to draw a stick figure? Like, what that means is basically anyone can do it at any skill level. But then I start to teach them, okay, take that stick figure you drew that's not hard to draw, and let's make him a little bit better. Then let's make that one a little bit better. And initially I thought that was a pretty good idea, because what it would do is it would take you from like beginner level, extremely beginner level, but because you just keep adding one little thing, like, hey, here's a guy and he's a stick, but he doesn't have room for his organs here. Okay, let's make it a box. So now he has room for his organs. Okay, well, his limbs are too short. Let's give him bigger limbs. Okay, that's a bit more proportioned. All right, the head's too big. Let's shrink the head a bit. Okay, so now from here to here, there's actually quite a big improvement. But this is all stuff you could kind of teach in minutes. So if someone's stuck at this level, it's not long to get to this level. Okay, so now from this level to this level, what you've basically done is you bring the eyes to the middle point more. You add a nose, you add ears. Okay, then from this level, well, okay, so the eyes are around the middle, but you need space for a brain, so you add more of the cranium. All right, so now you add these circles to represent hands and these triangles to represent feet. So again, this is not impressive, but if you compare it to this, it's quite a big jump. And then, okay, now he has fingers and thumbs, and okay, now he has a hairline. Okay, now he has articulation points here at the knees and the arms. And where are they? Well, they're halfway. So you go from here to here, and then, halfway. Let's add that. All right, now we flesh him out a bit more. Okay, now, so basically it's taking something extremely simple and then going more and more complicated. But the problem is, I realized pretty quickly this is going to be very hard for people to follow through if they're more advanced. And the jumps are not so easy to take, because like I go from this and then I think, well, now you can do all this, but not really. You still need quite a bit of mileage. So it's something that, although I was going to do, I now have it on hold, and I'm not sure it's actually a good idea. But I like generally the idea, but teaching art to a large number of people, I'm realizing just how hard that is. It's much easier to teach one-on-one or to a small group, because then you can really see where everyone is and help them along where they're at. And this was kind of trying to do that same thing. If you go far back enough so that you're teaching the person who would be the worst in the class, then everyone can benefit because everyone is either better or equal to the level. But then it would be pretty annoying if you were kind of higher level and you had to go through all that. So I don't know. I think it was just something that was an idea that had potential, but I'm not sure. So doing some faces. I like this face. This face is okay. I like these sad girls. And then here, I was trying something out where I just use, I think this is an old brush, but basically I did the thing in a pencil sketch, and then I blocked out the hair, and I just use that and use these downward strokes to make it like this. And then here I did the sketch, and then I blocked in all the areas that are dark, and I reduced the opacity of the sketch, and then I just filled that with the same thing, these downward strokes. And I think it looks kind of stylish, but it doesn't feel, for me, it wasn't fun to do, so I didn't want to keep doing it. I'm still thinking about different ways of finishing, because I figure if I'm going to make a comic, then I need to be able to draw K over and over again. So here's the HB pencil, which is personally my favorite. Like, this is the stage I like it the most. Then I use this dry ink to, create more of a clean outline. And it's not perfectly clean. You can see if you zoom in, there's like mistakes. See here, wobbly lines, double lines in places. That's not perfect. But okay, and then here I tried to do what I did with the other ones, where I block out I select the hair, and then I use an old brush, and then I was just going with the form, but I didn't really like how that worked. I used a soft brush for the skin, and then I duplicated the line art layer, this dry ink, and then I set one of them to Gaussian blur, so there's like a bit of a blur around that line, so it looks a bit softer as a line. And then with a hard brush, I added the highlights in the eyes using pure white. And I added this color for the shirt and some shadows here. I used a hard brush for those shadows. So, yeah, it's something, I guess. I tried a similar thing on this person with their hair, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Don't know what this image is supposed to be. Just drew this person, then I put a person behind her. Okay, so here I wanted to try a more fun technique, which is take the same drawing as last time, this one, but instead of going into this inking way, what if I just painted it? So I did the same method that I showed pretty much before. You select around with the selection tool, then you fill that with the shadow color, then you block that down. And I actually did this method when I started Pointy Chins, probably in the first couple months, maybe in the first month even. I started doing this method where I would pick any color. And I think there's a video I made on YouTube called How to Choose Colors That Work. I believe that's it. And it shows this method where you find a color, like a color that you want generally, and you find like a darker tone of that. You fill everything with that. Then I just clip this layer down, the drawing layer down to that, so now it's all clean. But here I did a much faster technique. So whereas in the other ones I was adding a bunch of light and stuff, here I just used gouache brush and I picked the color, like the local value. So in this case the hair is pink, so I just picked this pink and then I start painting, but I painted more where the light hits and less where the light doesn't. And here I used the teal color of her skin, so you can see as lower opacity as it gets away from the light, but it blends with this purple, so you get kind of nice smooth transitions. And then I used that layer mode add to create the highlights, and then with the multiply layer I added a bit more shadows where light is not going to be able to get in, so kind of under here, and I made that a bit more saturated and red. You can kind of see it in the neck how red it is, but there's still like, it's a lot of mess. But the goal is to get things down really quickly and then spend time just cleaning it up. So here I just added details, smoothed out some of the areas. I mean, I still could work on this for a very long time and make it super refined, but it's fast, and that's the important thing. And then I added a highlight in the eye, and what I do is I usually either use like green or teal or blue or even purple or pink. I put that down first, and then I put white in the middle, so you get this kind of bleeding bloom effect with color, and it just makes it look a bit more bright. And then here I used a big brush. I set the mode to overlay, and I painted over everything, like the hair and the skin, and I'm just treating it like light was coming down, so it creates this like warm glow from the top, and it also adds a lot of color variation, which is interesting in the skin here. So there's a difference between this forehead color and this chin color, and also a slight difference in the values as well. And so I think it's a good coloring technique that I probably should have kept going with, but I felt like I don't know enough stuff, so I wanted to learn more. But it's kind of funny because it feels like I'm going a bit full circle. So, but I wouldn't have been able to draw these before, so that's for sure. Couldn't draw a guy like that before, so I feel like I did learn a ton, even if it was a long process with many winding roads. I like this guy. Thought he was pretty cool. When I draw things like this, I try and think about the shapes. Like, am I getting a big shape and then a smaller shape and then an even smaller shape and then a more medium shape? So you have like big, medium, small, medium, small, medium, small. But one big one. And yeah, gave him some skull things. I don't know. And here I just tried to draw Karen, a nurse in Space Waitress Kate, and I tried to flesh her out quickly with this style. So when I say quickly, I guess it's still maybe it's 30 minutes to an hour, I guess. So maybe it's not too fast. But anyway, and then drawing it. It depends. If I'm erasing it a lot, it might take a while. But it's still faster than normally how I paint it, I guess. So yeah, just drawing some random faces, some skull guy. I like the colors on him. Maybe I don't really like much else though. I don't like this thing. So here, I like this guy's mustache because it goes not realistic, but yeah. And then I wanted to get good colors. Again, I'm quite enjoying doing this coloring method because it lets me put things down, and it's fairly quick, but it also kind of looks like it it's got stuff to it. Like it feels like you can turn this into a more realistic painting fairly easily. Man, this guy's got like a butthole ear, his mouth. Not too pleasant, but Flavia liked it, I think. I think she liked this guy too. I think the sketch is better. I don't think those colors are really working together. Nah, more faces. I still like the sketch better in most of these cases. I just feel like this needs more time. You know, you have to go in and actually carefully render it. But maybe that just shows my inexperience. Maybe there is a much better way of doing it. Maybe I need to use bigger brushes and be more bold or be more correct with colors or the values or getting the planes, you know, to feel accurate. Like this does not feel blocky enough. Whereas in the sketch, it actually feels like this corner turns a bit better, although this line kind of kills it. If I was going just that way instead of that way, it would do a lot for the form of this. More figure drawing. Yay. All right. So here I'm using a lot of the side of the Apple Pencil. And you can see how rough it gets. But then here, it's using more of the point and how scratchy, I guess, it can get. And then doing different faces. Kind of like this one. Again, I like the sketch more. Almost always. I prefer the sketch. Here I did like a K. I wanted to push the figure a bit because I felt like I was doing a lot of figure drawings, but I wasn't doing my pushed proportions too much. And I know this is unrealistic and it's not supposed to be some kind of, oh, this is what people should look like or anything like that. I mean, the eye is completely fucked. I mean, it's out of the eye socket, should definitely not be there, but whatever. It doesn't look so terrible and it's not too hard to fix that. But anyway, the point is, I just like drawing my own proportions, even if they're not politically correct or whatever. And then, yeah, I just added a bit of clothing to see, you know, what could I do? A bit of detail in the face. And then here again, it was back to skin tones. So in this page, these two were drawn, like I was looking at reference and I was stylizing the people here. And here, and then for these two, they were just made up. So, or was it these two were made up? Or maybe these two were made up? Or maybe these two were made up? And these two were, I don't know. Two of them are reference and two of them are made up. I guess the fact that I can't tell is something. For sure she was reference though. I know that much. I'm not sure about the rest of them. But yeah, it is kind of my goal to not have work that looks referenced just because it is. Here I was just trying to paint some kind of scene. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I just felt like I hadn't done that in a while. When I used to speed paint, I was doing stuff like this a lot, very often anyway. So I guess it was just, I haven't done this in a while. And then here, I did a figure drawing. First, I took a bit more time rather than like a 90-second drawing. This probably took 10 minutes or 5 minutes or something. And then got her big and then really probably spent quite a while painting this and painting this one. But I really don't like the way I got the skin tones. When I squint, it's, again, if I move really far back and I squint, it's okay. But when I don't, it's quite unpleasant to look at. I feel like the colors, the saturation, things are just not meshing well. And then here, I was just trying to do more with the image because here I tried, you know, splitting, instead of doing one drawing and then one drawing, I tried to do one painting, and then here I tried to do the same thing. But it's pretty much stupid pose, don't really know what's going on. I like the colors a little bit, but even not too much. I feel like the colors aren't great, but I wanted to get a lot of color variation. You can see there's like blue in her butt and purple here and some yellows here and some greens here. So there's a lot of colors going on, a lot of variation. I wanted to do that, carry it over, see how she has kind of purples in her skin, some blues, some yellows, playing around with saturation, like making this deeply saturated in the shadows just to see what would happen, and then having the background a bit softer, just kind of arms or something in the background. It doesn't mean anything. The story isn't really anything. It was not well thought out. I was just experimenting, I guess. Again, if I squint really hard, it's a bit better, but only marginally. Here I wanted to kind of put the realistic thing against the more simplified version. So I've noticed ever since I started doing art, people respond a lot more to the things that are more realistic that I do than to the things that are simplified. And it's as if they think doing things more realistic is harder. Like the simplified one is easy and the realistic one is hard, and therefore to do anything realistic is admirable, and to do anything stylized and cartoony is not. So I did start to think that it does kind of matter to me what people think about my work. It doesn't feel good. Like I've lasted quite a few years being kind of stubborn, but and not doing realism and stuff when I don't want to. But it does kind of suck after a while when it's like, well, people don't really respond to the work, but if I do something realistic, it gets a lot more attention. And eventually it's like, why am I bothering with a style that feels like very few people like, when people prefer things that are more realistic? And then I colored it, and they both took about the same amount of time, and they both took about the same amount of skill in terms of like thinking. But I guess this looks cartoony and people would dismiss it, and this looks more realistic and people would think, oh, I mean, it still looks bad, but more realistic, I suppose. So people would think, well, this is better art. But I personally like this one a lot better, and it feels kind of sad. Maybe that's why this guy's so sad. So here I just was doing some thumbnails. It's been a while since I'd done thumbnails, so all right, let's do some thumbnails. Tried to imagine some scenes, but it's very different when I do stuff like this compared to when I'm doing Space Waitress K stuff, because with K, there's a purpose, and the more I get a purpose, before I was doing it with Wraith, the more I have a purpose, the more my works actually are going somewhere and going towards something, as opposed to this stuff where it's just, okay, random thumbnail. Okay, cool. Maybe this guy's sitting on a bus or something, and this guy's reading a paper and also sitting on a bus or a train or something. It's okay. Some of them are okay. Kind of like the story here of this person and this character in the background. This composition's kind of okay. It's not terrible, but it is kind of lost. These people looking at their phones. Kind of like how fat this guy is. And this... Yeah, this one is a bit generic. I guess it's like a bit okay, but in a way that's a bit obvious. There's no real story here. He's standing in some kind of tall grass or something. Okay. And whereas yeah. And then these, I'm not sure. I guess I wanted to give her a long nose. This one I was thinking of Aaron from Wraith. I don't know. So here I just did a drawing, regular sketch, but then I made the lines. I duplicated the line layer, and I think I blurred it a little bit, and you can kind of see that it gets a soft look to it. I think I blurred it a lot actually, so it's there, but it's kind of rough. It's hard to see it, but you can kind of feel it. It feels a bit soft, and so that's how you do that. You just duplicate the layer. You can change the mode to multiply or color burn or something as well, but then you just blur it with a Gaussian blur a bit, and you get this fuzzy effect. And I tried coloring it and added a little light with the luminance layer brush in the luminance folder. Yeah, wanted to get this to feel three-dimensional. I'm not sure how much I succeeded with that, but that was the idea. And just kind of adding details to certain areas. It's just nonsense. It's just scribbles, but it just needs to look as if there's something. I'm not really sure whether I like this or not. I kind of don't, but I kind of do in some ways, so I'm really not sure. And here I tried a different thing where I just blocked out the silhouette, and I tried to treat it more like sculpting, where you put stuff down, you look at the silhouette, okay, does it work, does it not? Just blobs of color, all with a hard brush. And then when I was done, I made a new layer, clipped it down, and just put in where the shadows would be, but I use this blue. Then in the shadows, I used the same or similar values, but dark colors and a soft brush, and I kind of created random colors. So there's random colors in the shadows. And I did the same for the lights, but I made sure the values in this, although the colors move around a lot, the values are brighter in the lights and darker in the shadows, and those are very separate. And then here, I guess I was putting in more tones and more detail. I was defining things more. I started putting in darker areas where light's gonna have a hard time getting into. Then here I put in a global light from the top, so it hits everything. It fades off, and then I removed where the lights wouldn't hit as much. I added a bit more detail, and then here I used like a general skin color on top to define things. I defined the pants with just color, like putting down a local color, but it still picks up everything underneath, so you get detail showing through. And then here I kind of added more detail, defined some of these things, made some anatomy. This flattens out in a very ugly way, and I added some underlighting. I guess I added the underlighting here, but yeah, not entirely happy with this, but it's something, I guess. I don't know if you want to try it, but if you do, if you think it's okay, maybe it'll work better for you, especially if you're better at drawing than this stuff. But yeah, next month I'll be doing a lot more painting stuff and trying to understand light and color even more. So yeah, after that we really go hardcore into Space Waitress K stuff. But thank you for watching. I hope this helps. Yeah, thanks for watching.